You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
Approximately 10.5% of 13 to 18-year-olds and 9.6% of 19 to 24-year-olds identify as LGBTQ in the United States, and the number of people who identify as LGBTQ is rising.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Unified. We're so happy to have you here. I'm Kimberly, and this week we're talking about LGBTQ and specifically the youth of LGBTQ. We have three guests, so we're really excited to have them here. Josh, Max, and Talia are all here to share their experiences. So if you guys could just go around and introduce yourselves to our listeners, that would be great. Why don't we start with Josh?
Yeah, my name is Joshua, and I identify as a gay man. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a younger adult, I should say, and I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
What about Max?
Hi, I'm Max. I'm 21. I am a trans guy and bisexual, also he, him pronouns. I'm a computer science major, and I'm really cool. And I'm excited to be here.
And I'm
You are really cool.
You are really cool, Max.
Last but not least, how about you, Talia?
I'm Talia. I identify as pansexual. I use she, her. I don't know. I'm kind of awkward.
So that everybody knows, because we're probably going to give this away anyway. Max is my son. And Angie, what is your relationship with Talia?
Talia is my best friend's daughter.
And I've actually been lucky enough to have Josh stay at my house, so I've met Josh as well. So we all kind of have a connection here, so that's awesome.
Right.
So now that we've gone through the introductions, I kind of want to dig a little deeper and ask you guys, at what age did you know how you identify?
Well, I'm gonna focus on my being trans, I think. So in that regard, I think I was 13 when I first thought about it seriously. I think I pretty much knew for sure how I identified when I was 15 or 16.
Okay, and what about you, Talia? At what age did you know that you were pansexual?
See, I didn't know what that term was up until 7th grade, which is when I figured it out. So I kind of went with bisexual from 3rd grade to 6th grade-ish, because I kind of just always knew that I liked both, but I thought that was normal, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Up until about 6th grade, when people were like, you can't like both.
Really?
Or all.
Well,
Wow. I'm
who
actually
said you
surprised
can't like
by that.
both?
Yeah, I'm surprised by that for your generation. Who was telling you
it
that?
was my church pastor.
Oh, okay.
of course, it was.
The church is an issue with a lot of LGBTQ
Well, especially where she lives. There's a lot of issues.
in the South, right?
Yeah, I experience a lot of that too, also living in the South.
Yeah, small towns in the South. That's
Well, small towns anywhere, but the South is the worst.
yeah.
And Josh,
Yeah.
what about you? What age did you know?
Yeah, for me, it was quite different, actually. I didn't really come to terms with it at all until I was around 19 years old. After I had gotten out of my home situation and into college and everything, I had sort of experienced some signs, I suppose, fairly early on, in puberty and such, where those interests were there and my attractions were there, but I didn't really consciously recognize those things until college, for sure.
And do you know what was kind of blocking you from understanding?
Yeah, I grew up in a very conservative household. My parents were very staunch Christians. They were and still are against being gay and that kind of thing. And for me, I think in some ways it was a subconscious way maybe of protecting myself. I'm not really sure why it took me so long to kind of figure out those things, but I'm sure that contributed to it for sure.
Do you mind me asking, when you finally came out, how did your parents react?
For me, coming out was hard. When I was, after I decided to move back from college to live with my parents for a little bit and work to try and build up some money once I had finished my associate's degree, I made the move knowing that I wanted to go ahead and come out. And yeah, that was a difficult process for sure. There was a lot of anxiety around it. And they didn't take it horribly, at least in terms of like some of the things that you hear from other people. Obviously, there's plenty of people who could come out and have pretty terrible experiences with it with their parents, which mine weren't too bad, but they certainly weren't supportive by any means. They made it quite clear in our conversations about them not necessarily supporting that and believing it's more of a choice. And a lot of the discussion kind of turned into less about my sexuality and more about religion with them.
I'm so sorry. That's got to be really hard. And that's a good point that you're making, that some people do believe it's a choice. And there's a lot of argument around that. Can Max or Talia, can either of you identify with that?
Yeah, it's dumb. It's just let people do what they want. It's not really a choice. Like, you like who you like, you are who you are. Let people be.
Well, I think also one of the easy things to like show people and saying that is asking someone who might not necessarily agree with various LGBT related issues. Just kind of asking them, well, for instance, like with your husband or wife or partner, did you experience any sort of...
When did you decide to be straight?
Yeah, basically. Like, when did you decide to like the person that you liked? Like, it wasn't necessarily a choice per se. It was something that kind of grew over time and just sort of, I guess, happened. I mean, I'm sure, like, to a degree, like, there's a certain amount of, like, conscious thought that goes into it, I guess you could say. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something you have full control over, for sure.
I really like that analogy because I think people can get it from that perspective.
Now, Talia, I heard a story about you ahead of time that in your high school, things weren't always supportive, and you did something about that. Would you mind telling us a little about that?
So it's actually getting a lot worse now, and we're trying to figure that out. But back at the junior high, whenever I was in 8th grade, I want to say, there was a lot of people that like started coming out around that time. That was about whenever everybody was like accepting who they were and being like, hey, this is me, and being able to express that about themselves. And at my school, it is ran by a few people that aren't okay with it. And they basically would get on to anybody who they saw wearing Pride merch. If it said like, if it had like a rainbow on it and it said Pride, you know, they would get on to you, tell you it's not appropriate. And we had a group of kids that would walk around screaming slurs at us and basically telling us that they were going to bring weapons to our school and do something about us if the school wouldn't get rid of us.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And so we ended up having a protest, and a bunch of people were saying that we were rioting and a bunch of things like that, when we really were just trying to get people to stop.
What did they end up doing, Talia?
They took the kid out of all of my classes. They just transferred him out of all of our classes and basically told my guardians that they can't do anything about it because they didn't personally hear it. No adult figure heard it. So instead, they were just going to keep us separated. I confronted one of our teachers, and I told them basically that if they weren't going to do anything about it, I was going to. Personally, there's not really anything I could do. I was going to take a bad approach at it, personally, if I'm being completely honest. But I ended up finding one of my teachers who I know is like kind of the scary teacher of the school that people don't mess with. And I told her pretty much that if she wasn't going to confront those guys, then I was going to hit one. the one that started it all, and she confronted it and took it to the main office, and now they were like monitoring the guys and caught them do it so they could get in trouble for it.
So you actually had to threaten to hit somebody to get them to do something about it.
Yeah, I confronted one of the teachers and I told her that if they didn't do something about it, I was going to hit him. And they stepped in.
I think that's a pretty big issue with teachers in schools, or school administration in general. I feel like a lot of the time they're gonna do whatever they can to not deal with it. Just try to ignore it. And we have like dumb policies like zero tolerance bullying and stuff like that. So it doesn't actually surprise me at all that you had to literally threaten that something was gonna happen if they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I can also just jump in and say that from my experience in school, for sure, the administration that was in charge at the time was definitely, and even still now, I suppose, was very hands-off as far as how willing they were to step in a lot of times. It took a lot for them to be willing to step in and stop things. And even just in general, there was a large bullying issue in my school, and we had a number of different teens that had committed suicide throughout just the time that I was there and even shortly after.
I feel so bad that people die by suicide because of they're not accepted for who they are, or they're being bullied. Like, I was bullied all through school and I was suicidal many times. Mm-hmm. There's these people out there that say, oh, we were bullied and we're okay. You know what? I was bullied and I'm not okay. Are you really okay? Right. Are you really mentally okay? Anyway.
And
sorry.
I mean, we're talking about administration that is supposed to be protecting its youth. And all it's doing is saying, you know what, we don't want to look at this. We're going to turn our heads. And that's ridiculous.
Shame on you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to lie. As a kid growing up, just like middle school, seeing all of this happen, because I was lucky enough to be online school through high school, but in middle school I did have like pretty much the same experiences. And when you're a kid growing up, when you're like 12, 13, all that really teaches you is to not trust adults. Like, it's really not good. It's not healthy. There's nothing to gain from all these policies that are supposed to be protecting kids, but they're obviously not. It's just all bad all around.
Did any of you have any negative responses from peers?
From my perspective, I didn't really have any negative responses from peers whatsoever, which I think part of that is just because of the circles that I've been a part of. Like, for instance, in high school, I was like in band. I mean, there were other kids that throughout high school were gay. There was one that came out as trans my senior year. Which, of course, at the time I wasn't necessarily out and didn't necessarily understand. But I remember whenever I did come out, a lot of the friends that I'd had in band and stuff in high school were very supportive. Really, the only immediate backlash that I personally got was from my family. That was it.
And do you have support from your peers, Talia?
Like, the majority of my friends are gay, trans. We had one person back in 8th or 9th grade, I don't remember. She ended up moving, but she would make like comments that were very offensive, and then she would say like, just kidding or whatever. And when we would confront her on it or be like, hey, if you don't stop, we're gonna have to like talk to somebody about this, because she would say things that were like would really upset some of the people in our friend group.
That's not okay.
No, it's another form of bullying.
It's not okay.
The area that I like currently live in is, I don't want to make this like a thing, but it is true. The area that I live in is a like mainly white population, and the guy that I'm currently with is of a different ethnicity. He's Samoan, and people at our school, like whenever we're like walking down the hall together, they don't look at us as like normal people. They look at us as the gay girl and the guy of the different ethnicity, which has been like kind of like a bother lately, because we've been getting a lot of like comments and really bad looks, and a lot of people basically telling me like that I'm not gay anymore, like I'm straight now because I'm with a man, which isn't true. Like, just because I am with a man does not mean that I am any less pansexual. Like, I feel like a lot of people have that belief.
I know that you have a great friend circle, Max. How much have they helped you through your transition?
A lot. Yeah, I've always tried to surround myself with people that I really care about and who care about me. And I've been lucky enough that, my friend group has always been very supportive and kind and loving, and they were completely supportive of me transitioning. A few of my friends, Josh included, even offered to help pay for my testosterone when I was just starting it. And I thought that was like really sweet because I wasn't making money for a bit. And yeah, they've been really just chill. I've had, some stress, some mood swings, COVID's going on, everything's weird. They've kind of helped, been like a stable rock for me through all of it. So I really appreciate them for that.
That warms my heart to hear that they're so supportive that they would help you with your therapy, your testosterone therapy. That is amazing. So Max is my son, so this is a little awkward, but I'm going to ask you anyway, Max. What is your family experience like? And don't hold anything back. It's okay.
I think it's been very mixed so far. And that's not necessarily bad. I think, like you and my dad as a whole have been fairly supportive.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's been like a lot of confusion on like not really understanding what's going on or what I want, and it's been tough in some places. But just personally speaking, I was depressed. I do deal with depression, anxiety, etc., all of that, and it has gotten significantly better since I came out and since I was able to transition. I'm in general, a lot more happier than I was. I think I am fortunate in some ways that my family has always been like, even if I don't understand it, I'll always support you. That's kind of their motto. Mm-hmm. And so I've always known that I can like trust you and dad and my immediate family to like be there for me if I needed it. Even if there's like mistakes along the way or a lot of confusion, I've been pretty fortunate for the most part.
Yeah, and I do want to mention to parents out there, it is really confusing sometimes, and that's okay. There's ways that you can learn. There's therapies that you can go to. It's really hard with COVID, but there are counselors who are specialized that will help parents. You don't have to navigate it alone. And at the end of the day, you just need to decide. This is what I said to myself. What kind of parent do you want to be? What do you want your child's experience to be at the end of the day when they look back on their life? Do you want to be the person that made it harder for them, or do you want them to look back and say, my parent was there for me? It doesn't matter if you understand it or not. You have to be there for your child. I mean, that's what I chose.
love
I'm going
that.
to be there for my child no matter what.
I love that.
Yeah. So what about you, Talia? What is your home situation like?
Mine personally actually has been like great because my sister is also bisexual, and my guardians are like very supportive. They like, after I came out, they basically just asked what it was, and they bought me like a bunch of pride stuff, and they were telling me if I ever want to go to a pride, like I need to just ask and we'll go. Like, I've been very fortunate with that, and I mean, for the main part, all of my family's pretty supportive too. Of course, I have like my grandparents or whatever that are kind of old school, so they don't really understand, and it's still kind of something to them that we just don't really talk about. But like,
Right.
They still love me, and they still like just want me to be happy.
So, Josh, what would you say to somebody new that is in your situation and hasn't come out yet?
Well, if I had to give any kind of advice to somebody who hasn't come out, and is in like a similar situation to me where they're in a more conservative household, for sure I would say you do honestly have to be careful in plenty of situations. There's a variety of things that can happen, and it's a stressful thing to do, but also you don't need to be too scared of it, but you do need to be aware that there are certain risks, especially in certain types of situations where you should at least be prepared for, because there are situations where people can be disowned or cut off financially. So I think it is important in certain cases that you have some degree of like, if I needed to be financially stable, I could be. So you definitely need to be aware that that's some situations that can happen.
You need to be prepared, it sounds like.
You definitely
happens.
Yeah, you definitely need to be prepared for those kind of situations, as sad as it is to say. But beyond that, I would say, and then a little bit more of a positive note, that even if your family or a certain like specific group of people or individual doesn't necessarily take it well, I think that overall in the end, having that opportunity to be able to come out and be yourself is really important. And it's, if anything, will show you who your real and true friends are, and who really cares about you for you versus what they want you to be.
That's an amazing point. And I think that's the problem with many parents, is that they see a vision for their child, and they want that child to grow up to be that, what they want them to be, but they don't actually look at their child as, who they are. I think as parents, it's our job to guide. It's not our job to force our opinion. Say, you're supposed to be like me or whatever. Guides don't decide.
Talia, what would you say to somebody?
I think basically I would just tell them, like, it's a very hard thing to do, of course, because, like, you contemplate, pretty much anybody that will tell you a coming out story, they've told you, like, it took them a while to be able to do it, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I think one of the most important things you got to remember is the time that it took you to be able to say it, to be able to tell people. It's also going to take them time for it to, like, click in their mind, like, especially parents that at first aren't supportive and then later on they become okay with it. It's kind of like it took you that long to be able to tell them. It's going to take them probably a good amount of time to be able to be like, okay, this is a thing, and become okay with it themselves. Because, like, it's different. Like, it shouldn't be different, but it is to some people. And I think that, like, I don't know, it's like you don't want to be you don't want them to be disappointed in you, and you don't want to, like, I don't know, I guess you don't want to, like, hurt somebody, and then because, like, just from being yourself, you don't want, like, somebody to be mad at you for being yourself. So, like, I don't know, I think I would just tell them to remember that, but, like, also remember you can't hide it forever.
Right, that's great advice. And I can relate to what you said, Talia. It does take a while to kind of let it settle and understand it, and in a way you kind of mourn the person that you thought your child was, but then you become closer because you accept them for who they are. And I would hope that all parents would become closer at the end of the day, but like you said, it takes time to let it settle and understand, just like it takes a lot of bravery to come out. I imagine that's terrifying.
So, Max, what would your advice be to somebody that is wanting to come out or new to the situation, but they're not out yet?
I agree with everything that Josh and Talia have said so far. The only thing I really have to add is it's scary, it's hard, it's weird, it's confusing, but there are a lot of people, at least in theory, there are a lot of people that are on your side, even more in the future. It does get better. It's so worth finally being yourself. If you can just get past that hurdle of, like, oh my god, what's happening? Why am I like this? I have to come out now? It's all scary, I know, but it does get better.
The other thing I want to quickly mention is how much religion does play a role in this. I know that many people who are, I'm not trying to pick on you Christians, but a lot of the Christians are very judgmental, unfortunately, against the LGBTQ community. There are some that are not. There are churches that are very welcoming. But the ones that are judgmental, I don't understand, honestly, why. But I know it can be a huge issue. And then also, a lot of people think it's a mental illness, which really upsets me. Can any of you talk on that? Have any of you been like, well, you just have a mental illness? This is something that can be cured. You can be converted or whatever.
Among people that are not accepting, that's one of the biggest like things that's brought up, that it's not like it's not a healthy way to be. It's not a natural way to be. You must be mentally ill. They'll point to like the problems that LGBTQ people face and say like homelessness or unemployment or their depression, anxiety, etc. And let's say this is because they're LGBTQ, not because of the much more obvious reason, which is the discrimination they face every day.
I want to jump in real quick on this religion thing. I just want to say that I know this is going to be popular, but that Jesus.
I know I'm dancing around it.
yeah. I'm just not going to dance around it. That Jesus said that we're supposed to love everybody. He didn't say who, and he didn't give you any like reason not to love anybody. So shame on you. Don't do that. Just start loving everybody how they are. Thank you.
Well, I will just jump in on this because I grew up in a situation like this. I think it's really important to understand, if you want to try and get into the frame of mindset of somebody who is in that sort of community, in like a very conservative Christian community, specifically ones that are, I think it's important to be specific that a lot of times the ones that are more radical and more judgmental are ones that are typically more, they believe basically in like salvation is the concept of it. And I think it's important to understand that like for many Christians, it's a very intimate and very ingrained relationship in their self, and their support system is all very ingrained in it. So I think that there's a lot of complicated things and reasons why people cling to those beliefs in particular. And I think it's just important to understand that from that context.
You know, I really think it's so beautiful that Josh said that we should try to understand from other people's side. Understand that they may not understand and be patient.
I will just say too that I think with my parents, I think it's important to understand that like I don't think they don't hate me or anything like that. Like they still love me. I just think that their understanding of love is just different because of the way that they see things. Because I mean, if you think about it, like whenever you put yourself into their shoes and like what they believe that, you know, being gay is a sin. So in order to show love to me in a way, like they have to reject that, because if they don't, then potentially, like, you know, I could wind up not accepting Jesus and potentially fall out of Christianity and all that kind of thing. And all the things associated with that. So like from their perspective, like it's important for me. Yeah. So I think just when you think about it from that perspective, it kind of changes your mindset more so, because I think it's really important to think about how other people, like why people believe things the way they do. And I think a lot of times, instead of being upset with them necessarily for believing that, which it's valid, I think, to like, just to clarify, it's valid to be upset and frustrated. And I mean, I've had those feelings too around people not being supportive, but at the same time, like when you put yourself into those shoes, you kind of realize that there's a lot more to it. And I think that responding more with trying to understand their perspective and trying to be a little bit more open, I mean, because I would expect the same thing for them to do with me. So I think that's really important also from the other end of things, and just trying to be a little bit more open and having conversations about things that sometimes aren't always comfortable. But I think that's really important in advancing those sort of smaller relationships and those dynamics and trying to move society forward. I think those small conversations are really important.
Okay, so a lot of people are probably asking, why are we talking about this on a mental illness and chronic illness podcast? Well, this does apply to mental illness, unfortunately. LGBTQ is not a mental illness or disorder. Some people like to throw that around and say that it is, but it's not.
Right.
Everyone has a sexual orientation and a gender identity. Sexual orientation is who you are romantically or who you're physically attracted to. Gender identity is the internal sense of being male, female, both or neither, which is separate from your biological sex. And this is where people get really confused. And you see a lot of fighting on the internet, in groups.
It can be very confusing.
Mm-hmm. It is confusing. I mean,
yeah,
it is confusing.
If I didn't have some wonderful young people to set me straight, sometimes I just wouldn't know. 4.5% of the United States population identifies as lesbian, gay, or bisexual. Of those, over 39% reported having a mental illness in this past year. Now, that's not saying that the LGBTQ, whatever they identify as, means that is a mental illness. That means that they have depression or anxiety or something like that.
Right.
That is nearly 5.8 million people, which is more than the entire population of Kentucky.
I mean, which is a lot.
Crazy.
Yeah, which is a lot. And I can completely understand how mental illness is like accompanied, because if you think about
depression,
or
anxiety,
PTSD, anxiety,
right.
depression, all of that stuff that goes along with isolation, trying
right.
to be who you are in a society that's not necessarily accepting of you, problems with your family, homelessness, foster care, all this stuff that we've talked about today.
People are dying by suicide. They are killing themselves because the community is not accepting them.
Mm-hmm.
That should make us feel horrible as a society.
And, it
really should.
Could not imagine being a parent of one of these children. And I know it happens, so but I can't imagine being the parent of one of these children and them not being there because they didn't get the support they needed.
I can't imagine that either. That would be...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, Angie, what is the mantra this week?
Love who you want, be who you want, and surround yourself with people you want. Never change, for you are wonderful, beautiful, and unstoppable. No one and nothing can ever stop you from being the person you want to be. Never forget that. And remember, love is love.
Love is love.
Love is love.
I love that saying. Love is love. Because it's true. Love is love. And, let's be stronger together. Like we say that every week. And this is perfect again. Be stronger together. We are stronger when we support each other. At the end of the day, everybody deserves respect and everybody wants love. And we need to think about our commonalities rather than what divides us. So love is love. We love you guys. We hope to see you next week. Take care.
Mask up and peace out, guys.
Unified through chronic and mental illness can be found at anchor.fm/unified. There you can find all social media links as well as other ways to listen.